Uh, okay, myself, Reenu Saluja. I'm part of commercial software engineering group within Microsoft. And here I'm working as software engineer. We work with the customer to build their Epic solution. And these solution they generally build on Azure and using open source technology. And as an open source technology, Kubernetes these days is having a lot of focus. So that's why my today's topic is all about how you can deploy your application from your local environment to cloud with secretless. Secretless is you need not to store your credential, your configuration information on a specific file on your local machine. So this is all about today's topic. And during session will have a bit more detail. So, as I said, today we are going to talk about secretless deployment from local to cloud. And what are the various things that we are going to use today is one is Azure SDK and another is Project Tie. And both together will help us to deploy our application on Kubernetes. So it looks like there is a lot of cool stuff that we are going to today. So uh, let's talk about today's scenario. So as I said, we are going to have three main pillars. One is Azure SDK, another is Project Tie, and third one is AKS, like your Azure Kubernetes Services. So just have a look on this slide. So before and why this slide, before get start into the detail of each and every component, I thought let's first share about the developer productivity. So our main focus is to improve developer productivity, and that's why we are working closely with the product group. And a couple of years we looked at the landscape of Azure SDK, and we discovered that there is spread out of this is spread out of across so many repository. And so we had to think like these thousand repositories using thousand of different various type of languages, services, and it's quite too hard keep track, and we don't have consistent experience across the board. So overall it's mean loss of productivity. So on bottom side you can see this is the new things after revamping of the Azure SDK. And why I'm talking about this SDK today, because in SDK, we do have several components that we can use during our session, but the main one that I'm going to highlight is the identity part. So just to give a brief, like if we want to have consistent CI/CD pipeline as well as consistent packages, and these packages are going to deliver to all mainstream packages. So in bottom line, our aim is to go to something which is more consistent, more predictable, and also there's a lot of design guidelines that we had to follow. So if you want to get deep dive, you want to use those things in your project. So this is an again open source. You just go ahead AKMS as your AZ SDK. There you can get more insight, and specific component that I would like to highlight for today's session is the identity component that we'll are going to explore today. So uh, we can use Azure SDK and tie together to build secretless application. And by secretless, I mean to say only secret that is going to be stored is in a key vault. So local development as well as the cloud development, you are not going to store or having to manage your own service principal. I hope everyone is aware of the service principle. And we can do that is using the Azure Identity Library. And now I'll go back to slide number 2, that is all about the Azure Identity Library that I'm iterating again and again. Uh, 1 second. Yeah. So this is a glimpse of Azure Identity Library. So in local, we are using Azure CLI for the credential that you already having, and in the cloud we are going to use manage identity. And in other secrets like setting store and key vault, that is also used here. So how that look like is so new Azure Data Identity Library provide us with this object and this class called token credential. And we have a set of classes that is drive of that, and from the token credential, and token credential basically get token. And from a developer experience, if I would say, you have Azure CLI credential, and also you are using VS Code credential, you are using Visual Studio credential, and as we are using different tools or different set of credential that we need to use in our application. For example, if I'm doing development, then for Java, if I'm using IntelliJ, then I need to use IntelliJ credential, for example. So so for .NET, we have these three environment variable plus interactive browser controls. So a lot of credential type of available that you can use in your application. So what is mean is when you already logged in into one of these tool, you will be able to use that identity to authenticate to Azure. Like if you have Eclipse, in Eclipse there is an option to authenticate to Azure. In similar way in Azure Studio, if you have already authenticated, does it make sense to have another configuration layer in between to capture the information and make your application up and running? Do you need to store those data? And for example, if you already have Azure CLI, and if you have already done AZ login, you assign role and responsibility or RBAC to your service principal to your account, then your access, say to underlying services. For example, if you are going to use Cosmos DB, you are going to use Blob services for your application, those will automatically get access. And in production, if you are going to use the manage identity. So this is a quick code example how Azure identity look when we have various credential equivalent to our Azure credential. And what does it mean? Like in Azure, we have client underscore ID and client underscore secret and tenant ID, and these are the environment variables. So once you have already logged into Azure CLI or using your IDE, so these are the configuration that is getting stored. So in in a set of developer, these is already available, and so it's an opinionated way to build. And it's a chain token credential which you can see on the next line. So I would say this is the, and again, the what is what does it mean is the custom chain credential. So if you want to use the Azure credential, you want to use your own chain, you want to build it. So you can use manage identity credential here, and then you use your CLI, whatever you want to use. And then in similar way that you can see on the board, in similar kind of lines will be there, which will capture the information from the CLI, and it will make a chain of the manage identity credential. So in sequence, what will happen, as I told, we have environment variable, we have uh, also our ID variables, and some configuration information. How will it make change? So which one to pick first? So what will happen, it will first try to manage identity credential. If it fail, then it will try Azure CLI credential. If it cannot find it either and it still fail, then it will go back to the classic way to file either if you have a key vault integrated with your code. If there's a key vault integrated, then it will try to pull the secrets from there. And if you are using another kind of secret client, then that is going to be the last option, and through which it will try to get that all information. And on top of that, if you are going to use auth token based authentication, then it accept the token credential as well as one of the parameter in the construction that you can see in the last line. So it will get those, and it will create the client, and finally that client you can use across the board. So you have various type of credential store in various type of environments. Now it is consolidated, and it will try to use the best one which is best fit your application. uh, So now this is all about Azure Identity library that we are going to use. So let's talk about the application or the sample that we will explore today for the secretless deployment. So so this is an sample application that I have took today, and this is Mimi Analyzer. So as name signifies it's combination of two. One is Mimi's, and other is Analyzer. So this is just an sample application, and use this application. Uh, we are using Azure SDK libraries as possible, and also this is an open source project. If you want to explore it, you can directly go there, and you can pull and have a look in the code. At high level, what this particular library is doing, it is picking the memes, and it is trying to find the sentiment behind these memes and try to highlight, like you can see if you are in yellow, if you are in green. So uh, now at high level, in technical terms, what I would say, if we have a new library coming out and we could integrate with the application, and one of these library, because building such kind of application, this is not only one library that we are going to use. At high level, if I need to extract the sentiment of a meme, then I need to have text analytics in it. I'm uploading the images, then obviously a blob storage is coming into picture. And on because if this application is going to be used by multiple users, so there may be a queuing solution that will take place. And also, after extraction of information, if I need to store the persistence data, or I need to set in configuration information, whether sentiment, if result is like 80%, it is green for me, or I need to change the configuration, it need to be like 95%. If it is positive, only then it is going to be green. So such kind of information for positive or negative or neutral memes, we can store into any kind of databases, as well as, or any kind of like Cosmos or table storage. So this application is using a number of things behind the screen. So for all these components, we are going to have some keys, and then there is some specific URL, some secret information that we need to store. Imagine if we need to store all these kind of information on a configuration file, and we have 4 5 of environment, then for each and every environment we need to change it. And sometime what happens, when developer they have created a .env file in which they have stored all these variables information, and if they are not using GitHub, and I have seen this happening many times, without git ignore, they commit the code and everything is on public, or if still it is in your private repo, it is committed, and anyone can see this within your organization, or the specific person who is having access of that. So that's a risk involved. Even if you remove that file, still it is getting stored in the history. So that's trail is quite hard job to clean. So that's why, can I have a deployment or an architecture of this application which I can follow, in which I need not to store any kind of this information. So what is an high level architecture? On screen you can see this application is like, first with app configuration is reading the data, then someone is posting the image. After posting the image, image is getting stored to blob storage, then a queue message is getting added. And .NET Core services, they are actually working with the AI services for the extraction of the text from the image and getting the sentiment, and finally data is stored in a Cosmos DB, and for that metadata is also get stored into table storage. So these kind of data provider is used in this application. Finally, reverse path is to sending the users acknowledge that what is the actual sentiment. So the reverse path that you can see, that is number 8. It is client sync queue message, and then it trigger function, it reply back. So at high level, it is also having some APIs. It is having Azure function on top of that. So the complexity in terms of the number of services, and this is not a single solution. Any application that you are going to build for production, anyway they are going to use at least these kind of services, any databases and blob storages, queue, functions, or these are the bare minimum requirement these days. So what about if I need to have secretless in this application? So what I will do, let's quickly jump to code, and from there I think it will be easy to understand um, how this happens in the code. So this is Visual Studio Code in which I have opened my application. So first, let's talk about the main component, that is my client.cs file. So, this is an claim how we are doing secretless in this Mimi Lizer code base. So this is an identity class, and there is a chain token credential which is getting called. And there you can see we have different type of data provider in this, and these data provider is getting initiated, and it is getting read all the information from the configuration part. So we can, as this is get change, get credential is happening here, and this is a client, and this is used across the board with various component, whether this is my Azure function or my API layer or various things. So we can reuse it, and I'm saying if I want to reuse it, I need to manage all the identity and secrets which this particular layer is using. And uh, uh, now let's have a look on the other slide, that is how my data providers is going to act in this scenario. So one thing I missed is like this is the managed identity chain. I think this is same code which we had a look during our the PPTs just few minutes ago. And now let's have a look in the client part. So when I need to set up a new client, and there I have various provider. One is my data provider, another is my messaging provider, and my configuration client, my blob service. So I need to initialize based on my configuration, and I initialize this all these credential with basic app setting. And if I need to ship it to production, because these are part of configuration, and at least in this file I haven't hard coded anything, I'm good to go from this service side. Now uh, uh, as we are using queue service, also in queue service it is going to be similar kind of thing, in which we have also initialized the client, and this is going to async call my client service, and there I need not to log in, I can reuse my existing stuff. Then we had two provider. One was for Cosmos DB, another was for table storage. In Cosmos client also you can see we inside the Cosmos provider, we have no secret in this. When I want to get my Cosmos key, Cosmos officially does not support Azure trajectory or oath type kind of token. So we need to store its specific secret, and I don't want to store that secret into a part of configuration or hard coded somewhere. So we are using appropriate permission for using the service principal, and that's how this and here I will pass all the key information, and with configuration it will get the required detail. Now I have one more file as part of the configuration, and there you can see here I have hard coded the detail or the configuration environment configuration variables name, that is like my storage connection string, my signal R connection string, Azure service bus, messaging type. So and this is, you can see this is part of my startup.cs file. So everything will be get boot up from the Azure key vault from here. And this is, there you can see I have configured key vault. And sequence you already know how does it look. In the last, if it is not able to find from your environment variable and local configuration, it will read the key vault. So, and then we have this environment. In environment, you can see I have specified these base name and others. And from there, there is no specific connection string which I have specified here. It will automatically trigger either from the startup CS that I have provided, or in CS it will just read the name and it will get initialized from Key Vault and other places. Now another component I will quickly go to that as well. That was the project tie. And what is project tie? Project tie is this, and now this is again an open source project, and this is the core component that will help us to do the deployment. So, and why this project tie? That let me give you a brief. When we thought we need to deploy this application to production, and we need to do for inner loop deployment right here, and specifically for the Kubernetes, we know that to go to do Kubernetes, we need to first containerize my application, and then we need to, and if we are after containerization, again there are further steps that we need to have Docker compose, then finally deploy. And also you already know, build it doesn't mean that for that it's just a simple command. I need to create few YAMLs file for that, and for each and every stage modifying those YAML files for developer, it's quite hard. The reason being, they are not familiar how Kubernetes work, and they don't know how scaffold exists, and how these tools exist, and how these tool actually works behind the screen. So being a developer, it's quite hard. So this project tie is going to simplify those specific thing, and these things are these commands. So using these commands only, you can directly deploy your microservice based application from dev to production or various environment. So as I show you the code, in code you are not going to hard code anything, you are just specifying the various parameter that you are going to use. So let me give you brief about all these at high level, what these command is going to do. Like, first task is to containerizing the project. So what we will do in project tie terms, we are not going to create any kind of Docker file. Although it's optional, if you are going to provide the Docker file, it will directly use that. Otherwise, if you are not going to provide the Docker file, then what will happen? It will read through your code, and there in application configuration we have provided MCR Microsoft.NET, and SDK is 5, and in recent upgrade, it will automatically scan your project, and it will see what are the required configuration for this project, and it will try to build a similar kind of file that is our Docker file. So once things are containerized for your project, and let me quickly show you one file. Sorry about this. So let me quickly show you in my projects. So what is this sample file? 1 second. So we do have this dockerfile.env. In this we have used this. So if because we are using the latest one, it will scan all the things. If you are not going to create this, it will automatically build for you. Next command that we are done with the containerization. Then we have few other commands, like you need to start the service, you need to debug, there is watch files. For that, what we are going to do is, these are the set of commands. So main command is tie run, and with tie run there are various switches that you can use. Like for debug, there is minus debug, minus watch, and these are the step-by-step command. These will do almost each and everything for you, and you are not going to create a single YAML file. But there are few things as part of configuration that you are going to create, and these files are just a quick look in the file. One is my run.sh that I have created in run.sh. You can see this is again a tie run command, and in this we have specified the switches on which environment. So based on environment, it will hit the key vault, and it will try to generate the configuration file. And since it does not work along, so that's why behind the screen we are using another shell script, and in this shell script we have defined this is the shell script which I kind of YAML it need to generate. So once we have done this, then there is one TIE-ML. So this file, you can similar the files that YAML file that we use to get things deployed into Kubernetes. But this is very simplified version. There you can see what are the Azure function that need to get, and also there is details about the ingress and other things. And one is for there was one is TIE-ML, another is similar way for production. You are going to create similar kind of thing, and it will for production you are also going to spy which is going to be a service, which version it need to use. So in terms of less number of tool, earlier that we identify 3-4 different tools at least you need to use for containerizing and deploying your application in the production. But now it's not the scenario. It's a single tool and only one command with different parameter that you are going to use to have this. And on the last thing that I would like to have uh, is just a glimpse of the project TIE. So this is the project TIE. It's an open source repository, and it's quite easy to configure. And as it is a developer tool through which you are going to develop, test your application, which is microservice based. And also it helps us you to migrate, and you are not going to store any kind of configuration in your project. So everything either is going to be environment, it will automatically pull, it will create the YAML and deploy it to the requirement to the production environment, or you can have a key vault configure through which it will do everything for you. So I think keeping time in the mind, that's it from my side.